Hey everybody, welcome. Corey here with NewbComputerBuild.com. Today we're taking a look at the Be Quiet Pure Loop all-in-one AIO. This is the 360mm version. It comes with three 120mm fans. So 1, 2, 3 equals 360mm. And that's what we're taking a look at today. But we're not just taking a look at this AIO, we're going to do a bit of a review comparing this to this, which is my stock cooling that I currently have on this 3700X, so a Ryzen 7 3700X. And the goal today is to kind of look at this AIO and answer the question, is it worth upgrading from a stock cooler to a liquid AIO? And in particular, with kind of a mid-range gaming PC build. So this one's a mid-range build using Corsair 175R case, a RX 5700 GPU, Ryzen 7 3700X CPU, and 16 gigs of Crucial Ballistics 4000 MHz RAM. So kind of a middle of the line build. And so you can see here right now that I have the AIO already installed. You can see it's very minimalistic. It just has that white LED square or outline around the cooler itself, the cooler block. And then the rest is just black. There's no RGB or anything. You can subtly see their Be Quiet logo, which I like. It's just black. It's very minimalistic. And then if I take out the front of the case here, you can see the three fans that it comes with, which are all Be Quiet fans, as well on the front. And so these are on the radiator. I just want to point out that all tests were done with it attached to the case and pre-installed. However, this was a bit of a unique situation because we would have put it at the top of the case here, but we cannot fit a 360mm AIO on the top here, as it doesn't support that length. Had to put it on the front. But another problem is that we couldn't attach the fans directly to the radiator because there's not enough room inside and outside to do it. So I had to have the fans on the outside, radiator inside the case, and put them together that way. So that might have had a little bit of a loss in performance, but we're still putting it in a push configuration. So we're pushing air through the radiator into the case. What they recommended was at the top on a push configuration out of the case, but I digress. So to AIO or not to AIO, this is a question a lot of first PC builders ask because they're building their PC, their CPU comes with a stock cooler or it doesn't come with a stock cooler. So you're thinking, what cooler do I go with, or should I upgrade that stock cooler? And generally the answer comes down to, well, do you have the money to do so? Or are you going to do things like overclocking and things like that and push it to its limits where that would make sense? And depending on the stock cooler. In this case, the Wraith Prism, which is the stock cooler with 3700X, is a pretty beefy stock cooler because it has some pretty neat RGB lighting in my opinion, but it's actually one of the best stock coolers I've ever used. So in this case, is it worth this one upgrading to this one? But if you have the newest Ryzen generation of CPUs, they come with a Ryzen Stealth cooler, or they don't come with a cooler at all, so it might be worth, you might be exploring your options for a new CPU cooler, and this is where this might come into play. So how are we going to test today? What we're going to look at is idle temperatures first, the Ryzen Prism cooler versus the Pure Loop cooler on idle for 20 minutes, just running and getting a baseline of temperatures on both of those. We're going to do that both at default CPU settings, and then we're going to enable Precision Boost Overdrive on the Ryzen CPU for an overclock, an automatic overclock here, and do it that way as well. And then what we're going to do is stress the CPU using Prime 95, and we're going to do that for 20 minutes as well, which should give a good amount of time to kind of get the temperatures up. And then just for fun, we'll throw in a Cinebench R23 test in there as well, and just measure kind of a more of a real world situation, such as would it help you in things like gaming or other intensive tasks that like a real world task that you would use, and does it score better on Cinebench R23. So the Pure Loop came out late 2020, and then Be Quiet actually came out with a silent loop, which currently is not available. I think it's due to patents or something like that. I don't know the full details with regards to where the pump placement is on the AIO itself, but we won't get into that, and that's why we can't test that today. Currently right now, it's a budget-conscious AIO, which is why I want to review it today, because it's a very viable choice for those kind of getting into the PC building market, so kind of that mid-range, maybe into the high-range PC builds and wondering which AIO to get, because it's within, I think, even the generic brands in the top 12 most affordable AIOs at the moment, and that includes the 360mm one. Another thing that's interesting about this is that it actually comes with 100 ml refill coolant bottle of coolant that you can refill the AIO with. It doesn't, it comes pre-filled, but Be Quiet recommends after 2 years that you refill it. You can refill it, and they include that. Not many, if any, AIOs include that. So that's a very kind of special thing to include. Although in my experience, AIOs probably last longer than that anyways, but that's good to know. As well, what's included is the Intel hardware, the AMD hardware to install it, as well as all the screw hardware. It comes with a SATA cable to power the LED on the Be Quiet unit, as well as the pump. And then it comes with a fan splitter so that we can plug in all the fans. And then it comes with its own thermal compound, and I use the thermal compound that came with the AIO. One thing that I don't really include today is acoustics. I do subjective acoustics. I don't really have a meter. I was using my iPhone, didn't really give realistic results in my opinion, so I do not want to include those. The AIO is quieter than the Wraith Stealth Cooler, or Wraith, not Stealth, the Wraith Prism Cooler. However, I did the test with all of the fans on 100%, so wanting to kind of push it to its limits. And when you have these fans at 100%, it's not quiet. Some other reviewers have noticed a sound in the pump itself. I did not notice that sound. But overall, even this thing gets loud when it's pushed to 100%. All right, now for the results. You can see at idle, at default settings, CPU settings, the Be Quiet Pure Loop is 7.7 degrees Celsius better, which was a bit surprising to me. And then using Precision Boost Overdrive, it's about the same at 7.4 degrees Celsius improvement, which makes sense because Precision Boost Overdrive probably wouldn't kick in anyhow. And this is running all stress tests. This is running idle for 20 minutes straight. Now, with the Ryzen 7 3700X at default settings and stressing the CPU using Prime 95, using a torture test for 20 minutes, there was an improvement of 8.4 degrees Celsius on the Pure Loop, which is very significant if you ask me. Pure Loop in this case reigned supreme without any issue. In this use case, I would argue the benefit of using this AIO over a stock cooler. Now, when I enable Precision Boost Overdrive, I got a 1.8 degrees Celsius improvement. So not so significant. This was interesting. I would have actually thought that this would have performed a bit better, although it was still a bit better. Using Precision Boost Overdrive though, I actually had to run the test several times. I had a bit of a glitch, and I don't know what it is, I can't explain it. It would spike to 93 degrees Celsius, and it did it at about 10 minutes in, and it did it for about 5 minutes. I don't know why. And so I did the test several times until I can do a consistent test where it just would keep up. And that was what was interesting to me. And I don't know if it was because maybe theoretically Precision Boost Overdrive thought there was enough thermal room to do so, which doesn't make sense, but maybe it thought it had enough room and it just went for it. What I need to do is kind of, I want to do some manual overclock tests as well, but that's not included in this video, that's for another day. Next benchmark, Cinebench R23. This was interesting. This is what I thought was quite interesting too. So I did both multi-core and single-core benchmarks using Cinebench at default settings and at overclock settings. And at default CPU settings, the Ryzen 3700X, the Pure Loop scored 177 points higher on the multi-core, which is not hugely significant, but it is still an increase. For single-core performance, you can see that the performance gains were a little more minimal with only about 12 points increase using default CPU settings, but using Precision Boost, it was 14. Not hugely significant at all, but it is also an increase. Where the major performance increase was with Precision Boost Overdrive using multi-core, which scored a total of 234 points higher. In my books, that's pretty decent, and that gives more of a realistic real-world view. I think its PBO was able to push the results a little higher, which is good, and would kind of give me a use case for kind of getting an AIO in general that can kind of push your results a little further, especially with a little more extreme overclocks. Overall, I would say the Pure Loop AIO is an affordable buy for those looking for a cooling solution. In my instance, I would say it's worth it if you have the money. Otherwise, I wouldn't worry too much. If you don't have the money and you're worrying, oh my God, am I going to be able to cool my CPU? This does a good job. However, if you want that slight edge, this does the trick. Where I'm interested in is in 5600X that just came out. That come with the Wraith Stealth coolers, whether those keep up, because they wouldn't technically be as good as this one anyhow. So that's where you might see the margins increase in terms of performance. Some other things to take into consideration: using Corsair 175R case, budget case, small, not a small form, it's a mid-tower case. However, I did the way it was able to fit in there, maybe not the most ideal, but it works. It actually works. It's fine. It's compatible. I might go with the smaller versions, potentially in this case, but I don't know if it would perform a little worse and not make it quite as much worth it, but I assume it would be actually close to the results, if I'm being honest, especially with the 280 millimeter one, as the fans are bigger. Using the 140 mil fans might push a little more air through, so that might help as well, just a little bit. That I'd be curious about. So yeah, overall, it's a decent AIO. So is this. So I'll let you decide. Don't forget to click subscribe if you want to keep up to date with gaming PC build information. Otherwise, visit the site at newbcomputerbuild.com or leave a comment with any questions and I'll try to get back. All right, take care and best of luck building.